You're listening to Spotlight, the podcast that fosters connections with veterans and military spouses. Here's your host, Bob Louthan.
Hey, welcome everybody. This is Bob Louthan, host of the Spotlight on the VeteranCrowd Network. Very pleased to have Naval Academy grad, United States Marine, Iron Mike Steadman. Mike, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being my guest today.
Bob, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, I like to start out with my guest and go back to, where you came from. Where'd you grow up and how'd you end up going to the Naval Academy?
So I actually grew up in between Bryan, College Station, Texas and Tyler, Texas.
Okay.
So grew up in East Texas, there live with my mom. My family still lives there. Grandma, unfortunately passed away, in 2017. But, grew up between East Texas and going back to Bryan, College Station. And, I ended up going to the Naval Academy because I wanted to serve in the military. I didn't grow up with a father. My best friend, he was probably about 3 years older than me. And our parents worked together because my mom was a high school administrator. She did special ed. And one of her colleagues had a son named Jason. And Jason was a senior when I was a freshman. And so we grew up together, though. And when Jason was graduating high school, he was going into the military. So what do I want to do? I'll be like Jason. I want to go into the military. And so that ran me down this rabbit hole of looking at the service and the National Guard and everything. But my mom, working in education, she was very adamant about me going to college. And so, at first I wanted to go to Texas A&M, which was in my hometown. I was going to probably try to do the Corps Cadets. Started looking at some ROTC programs, VMI and the Citadel. And then, but I found out about this service academy called the Naval Academy, and that it was like, it was the best one, I was told. And so that just kind of led me down a rabbit hole of, eventually going to Annapolis, spending time at the prep school, and then eventually graduating and earning a commission.
Well, yeah. Did you go there to play a sport? You went to NAPS?
I did not. I was not an athlete. I just went on hopes and dreams and aspirations.
Now, were you a contemporary of Jesse Iwuji? Would he have been there about the same time?
I was. Yeah, he was my classmate. So we were at, we did the prep school together and we did the academy together.
And he's from Texas.
He is from Texas.
Did y'all live that far apart?
We did. Dallas and Bryan are probably like 3 hours away.
Right.
And in the Northeast, that's like 4 other states.
Do you keep up with Jesse?
I follow him on social media. I haven't spoken with him in years. I do need to get him on my podcast.
He's been on mine, man. He's rocking it, man. He's doing some fun stuff with NASCAR.
Yeah, he's getting after it.
He's done quite a bit, broadcasting for doing the races on NBC as well. So he's got a higher calling.
Yeah, he's been doing car stuff for the longest. So it's not like an overnight thing. He was always doing car shows and going to the track and everything. And so it's really cool to see his success start to compound.
So you get out of the Naval Academy and you go into the Marine Corps. Talk a little bit about your active duty experience. And then we got to kind of get into the call signs here. I want to figure out how you became Iron Mike. So, but anyway, back to the Marine Corps.
Yeah. So I, when I was at the Naval Academy, I was a 3-time national boxing champion, 2-time most valuable boxer, and captain of my boxing team. And back when I wanted to serve in the military, there was a time when everybody wanted to be a Navy SEAL. You either wanted to be a Navy SEAL or you wanted to be a Green Beret or you wanted to be a Marine. And I eventually found out once I got to the academy that I don't like swimming in cold water. Right. So SEALs is out the way. But I want to be a Marine, and I want to be what I thought us, our perception of the military was, right? Like somebody that pounds pavement, carries a rifle, carries a pack. That's what I saw when I thought of the military. And I felt like the Marine Corps would give me that experience, particularly as an infantry officer. And just being part of the boxing culture, like a lot of my co-captain is a Navy SEAL. Everybody goes Marines, like we go SEALs, Marines, or pilot. And so when I earned my commission, I said I want to be an infantry officer. And that's what I did. And so I graduated in 2010, deployed to Afghanistan in 2012 as an infantry officer with 1st Time 8th Marines, came back from that deployment, went to Japan and the Philippines in 2014, came back from that, and then transitioned off of active duty in 2015.
Did you keep up with the boxing when you were in the Marine Corps?
I did actually. When I first came in the Marine Corps, I actually got selected for the Marine Corps boxing team, but I turned it down to go with my platoon to Afghanistan. I wanted to be an infantry officer. I didn't join the Marine Corps to box. Then after I went to Afghanistan, I was like, okay, I can box.
Yeah. Hey, going back to the boxing now, tell me a little bit about boxing at the Naval Academy. You won 3 titles. What weight class and which boxing authority is the Naval Academy? Because VMI has won 1 team national championship, but I got to sort out which boxing authority. There's a couple of them in the college ranks.
Yeah, no. So I was 175-pound light heavyweight, and I fought that weight the entire time I was in college, all 4 years. And I won. It's in the collegiate. We call it the National Collegiate Boxing Association.
Right.
That's the premier one. But then people started to get sore because a lot of times the military academies would dominate those competitions, West Point, Navy, and Air Force. And so they created this other organization called USIBA.
That's probably the one VMI is.
And that's the one VMI won.
Yeah, because they've been there with schools like Michigan and some others.
Yeah, there's a lot of schools that just were like, we're tired of fighting military academies, because you would go to nationals and every national championship was like Navy versus West Point, Navy versus Air Force, and they just created their own organization.
But they also had the Brigade boxing championships within the Naval
Correct.
Academy,
And
right?
that was an issue. Yeah, that was an issue too. So at the academies, we have these Brigade boxing championships, which is really just intramural kind of, it's club sport boxing, but everybody can compete in it. But it's really the best rise to the top. So typically if you're a club boxer, you're going to win a Brigade championship, right?
Right. We had to take it. It was a rat class. It was, it was a freshman class at VMI was boxing. You had to take it. And I got my ass beat.
Yeah.
Twice a week, PE classes.
It's just something about, and this is what I'm saying. There's this mystique with boxing. You can't, it's funny because I'm actually going to be going to Everest Base Camp this year, right? I'm doing a little hike up there with with my business coach and some.
You're going up to like 17,000 feet.
Yeah, just the base camp though. We're not going all the way up. But like I'm watching all these videos of people climbing Everest, right? And it's just like, I was thinking, people would rather climb Everest than like step in a boxing ring.
Mm-hmm.
Really go toe to toe. And it's like all this stuff people do to feel that sense of like, I'm only one of people that can do this and conquer fear and everything. And yet still boxing holds this kind of mystique, and the way like even the service academies use it and the VMI, because when you're a plebe or something and you're first stepping in the ring, it's terrifying, right? You're looking at the gloves, they got blood on them.
Yeah.
Look at the mat, there's blood on the floor. You're like, this is barbaric. What are we doing here? But I just loved it, and I thrived at it and just fell in love with the sport.
I just remember boxing and you got to practice the jab, right? So you and your partner are punching each other in the face, just over and over again. And it's so I got to ask a question, and I'll use my sound effects for the first time here, for this question. Here we go. All right. So, did you ever get knocked out boxing?
I never got knocked out, and I never got stopped.
Never got stopped.
Nope.
So that's incredible.
Yeah. I don't know. I just had grit.
There you go.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, in my defense, so I trained hard. I did train hard. I was that guy, the last one in the gym, the first one in. And what really cultivated that passion for boxing was, if you know anything about midshipmen at the Naval Academy, they're not always the toughest individuals in the world. And so I always joke that I didn't win 3 national championships boxing a bunch of midshipmen. Right, I spent time at inner city gyms in Baltimore, DC, Brooklyn, the Bronx, back home in Texas, just getting beat up, right, by real boxers. And I'm not saying I'm a real boxer, I'm an amateur boxer, but getting in there with, guys that like they live and breathe the gym. And that's what gave me the confidence to step inside the collegiate ring and basically go to town, go to work.
I don't know how the guys go, 12 rounds with 8-ounce gloves. In college, I don't know I think we had 16-ounce gloves when we were boxing in college, and I have the utmost respect for the endurance and willpower for the guy that can step in there with another person that is that skilled and spend that much time in the ring. I don't even know how they do it.
Yep.
To be candid with you. Hey, so since you got out, you kind of become a little bit of an entrepreneur too. But let's talk a little bit about that part of the journey.
Yeah, I'll speed everybody up on that. So going back to, spending time with these inner city gyms, to be quite frank, there weren't the most African-Americans at the Naval Academy,
Right.
Especially we come from NAPS. And then by the time we make it all the way to graduation, you lose a lot of classmates and there's just not that many people there in the first place. And so, one of the places I always felt I had agency was I would go into these inner city gyms and I see coaches and trainers that look like me, that come from the similar community. And it always bothered me that I would go inside these gyms and a lot of the kids felt like they didn't have any options outside the ring, that it was either turn pro or go back to the streets, because in the inner city, that's what a boxing gym does. It keeps kids out the street. And I felt like that was a broken system. Felt like, you know what, man, at the end of the day, those of us at the academy, we're graduating. We're going to have a great degree from an amazing institution. We're going to serve our country as officers.
Great network.
Get out the military and then start businesses, go to law school, get our MBAs, etc. And I was like, why can't we do that in the inner city programs, right? It's like a missed opportunity because we all love boxing. And we used to wear it as a sign of passion, that we're these Navy clean cut college guys and gals going into this inner city gym in Northeast DC, you walk in there looking at you tough. It's like Rocky 3, but afterward it's all love. We're all here to box and get better. And so that just planted a seed in my head that I want to create a version of the Naval Academy boxing program in the inner city. And so I had an opportunity to intern at a school called St. Benedict's Prep over the summer of my sophomore and junior year at the academy.
Mm-hmm.
And they reached out to us and said, we need African-American midshipmen to come to Newark and basically teach leadership to our students who are 90% Black and Latino. So I volunteered, came here over summer, and just fell in love with Newark. And I told myself when I get out the military, I'm going to relocate to Newark and start a boxing program here at St. Benedict's Prep.
So you start Ironbound Boxing. When did that start to fall into place? And there must be a tie to Bunker Labs. You were maybe learning it, learning the process too.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So I transitioned off active duty in 2015. I relocated to Newark, New Jersey, and I didn't even know what I was going to do, right? I just had it wasn't even a handshake. It was a confirmation with the headmaster over the phone. They're like, yeah, we'll figure it out when you get here. I got in a U-Haul I got my DD-214 on Friday, got in a U-Haul Saturday morning, and then left North Carolina where I was stationed. And I came up to Newark and I didn't really know what role I was doing. The headmaster said he was going to give me a spot for a gym, but you know how sometimes people just say stuff, right? He's like, yeah, I'm working on it. But I got here and eventually they made me head residential housing director. So I ran a house on campus called the Leahy House, which housed basically St. Benedict's kids that were need of housing, that were one step out the door from getting kicked out, all under one roof. So it was 70 teenage boys in this giant house. And I lived on campus and I oversaw the Leahy House, right? I fed the kids, put them to bed, did all that. But under the
you thought having a platoon of Marines was tough, right?
It was basically having a platoon of Marines, but it was all under stipulation that I would get to coach boxing. That's all I cared about. I'll do whatever you want. Just let me coach boxing. So I initially started a St. Benedict's Prep boxing team. I got the logos and the jerseys and I trained them in my residence hall because we didn't have a gym. And then the city of Newark opened up a gym, a free recreation center that had a boxing gym in it. And so I used to commute there to train my kids there. But as word started to spread about the boxing program, I was tearing kids in my car, which was a liability, right? Especially when we were at high school. And then I started working with the city to drop us off there and pick us up. And then sometimes they would pick us up, sometimes they wouldn't. And so eventually I just approached the city after about a year and a half and said, hey, is there anywhere else in the city we can outfit into a boxing gym? I said, it's not going to cost you anything. We'll cover it ourselves. I just need a space. I got the thumbs up from the city of Newark, and they put me in the back of a recreation center in the Ironbound neighborhood of Newark. And one of the things that had already been happening, because we were training in these city gyms, I was working with these St. Benedict's Prep kids. That was mainly my boxing team. And it was very Naval Academy. It was like regimented, right? Like you had a coach. We came in, we did our warm up, we did everything together. And I would see all these other kids just kind of watching, because in the city, sometimes you got a coach or you don't, especially because you have to pay for them too. but not at this rec center. It's just that they didn't have a coach. You know, kids are there hitting the bag, working out by themselves. And so I will work with a lot more just Newark kids, you know, not from St. Benedict's. And when I had an opportunity to do a gym, it didn't make sense to do the St. Benedict's prep boxing gym, right? You needed something that was going to be inclusive, right? Because you got kids at East Side High, West Side High, North Side High, St. Benedict's. And so we put it all under one banner, which became Ironbound Boxing. And so we launched the gym in 2017, the Ironbound Boxing Academy.
Now, when did you go through? You went through the Bunker Labs about the same time, maybe a little bit in that time frame right there, right?
Yeah. So that's year 2017. So I launched the gym in February of 2017, and a Naval Academy classmate of mine had done a program at Stanford University for veterans called Stanford Ignite, where they taught you entrepreneurship over the course of 4 weeks. So he told me, he's like, Mike, you're doing great work. You need to go to this program. So he recommended me. I applied. I got accepted. Actually gave me a scholarship, flew me out there. I stayed at Stanford for 4 weeks. And one of the participants in the program with me was a woman named Justine Evers. And she was very heavily involved in Bunker Labs. And the last day, she took us to a bunker brew. And I was like, oh, you know what? This is pretty cool. I was like, is there something like this back on the Northeast? And she's like, yeah, I'll get you connected with Bunker Labs, New York City. And this is still like, I mean, they're still just kind of getting momentum going. And so went back to New York City and got connected with Bunker Labs. And I went to a bunker event. It was the New York City muster. And I pitched, right? They invited me to pitch Ironbound. And when I did it, the CEO was there, Todd Connor, his director of development, Becca Keedy. The whole development team was there. And it was the same day they were launching what became the We Work Veterans in Residence program. And so Becca, the Keedy, looked at me. She's like, you're special. She's like, I got an opportunity for you. And it's got to be the right entrepreneur. And they were basically looking for a community manager to serve as a volunteer for that first cohort of the veteran in residence in New York City. And because I was working in a residence hall, I worked in the evening. Right. So I had pretty much the morning to myself. So I was like, oh, I think this could work, you know, because I would have to be at the space at least 2 to 3 times a week, manage the cohort of 10 veterans that were going to get selected and be a part of the community and really bridge the community. And so that's what I did. And then what ended up happening was, you know, I kind of became the face of like Bunker Labs, New York City, even though I was living in Newark and commuting.
Got to give the shout out to Todd Connor. You know, Todd's been on my program. He'd probably be a great guest for you if you haven't had him already. He's published a book recently. And
yeah, I actually wrote the introduction to the book.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was the OG third shift entrepreneur because I was working in a residence hall.
I got to get my hands on that book. I'm going to see if I can get Todd to give me a signed copy of that one.
And we also produced a podcast for him, Third Shift Entrepreneur podcast. So it's going to drop when he's ready. But we recorded it towards the end of last summer.
Oh, okay. Well, he's, you know, little known fact, but, you know, I got it out of him. He was actually the Northwestern mascot when he was in college. So he must have had some good dance moves, you know, when he was doing the basketball games or whatever it was he was doing. You'll have to ask him about that. And then I got to give a shout out to Matt Milano too. Matt had worked with me and he's been involved in Bunker Labs up there in New York City as well. Well, so interesting stuff. So let's jump over to the podcasting business. You've got a couple of podcasts that you produce that are your own. The Transition is one of them.
Actually, yeah, I'm actually part of the Bunker Labs branding team. And I produce a podcast for them called The Transition, where we demystify the entrepreneur experience for veterans and military spouses. Because one of the things I've learned over the years, because I left my job at St. Benedict's in 2018 and did everything you read about, liquidated the savings account, jumped all in, did all that. And I've just learned over the years that, you know, no matter what it may look like on the outside, you know, people think, oh, you're killing it, you're crushing it, all this kind of stuff. The longer you're an entrepreneur, you start to hear the real stories and people open up to you. You know, you're like, hey, man, how's it going? They're like, man, just making it, you know, but just being transparent and vulnerable. And so I created a show around that for our community, and that's the veteran and military spouse community, where we can have open and honest discussions about what it really means to be an entrepreneur, you know, and some of the challenges people are facing. And, you know, I have my guests take off their armor and be vulnerable on the show in order to empower, you know, our community, because there's so much imposter syndrome out there. You know, you see people posted on LinkedIn and Facebook, and they're like, it almost seems like they're invincible when in reality, they have the same problems as you. And so just had the opportunity to do that platform. And I also have my own podcast called Confessions of a Native Son, where I explore race, culture, and business from the perspective of a Black veteran. Because, when you start looking at the landscape of the media and communication, and you just kind of see out there, I just feel like, my existence as an African-American, as a Black male, a lot of times our stories aren't getting told, let alone of our females as well. And so I feel like we have a unique American experience, and I have a background in American studies. So I got my master's from Rutgers because I've always been cultivating this history within me. I've always had this deep learning of history. I studied history undergrad, and I've always had this passion for African-American history. And so I launched Confessions of a Native Son to allow me to scratch that itch. And it's really evolved and almost becoming like my PhD, because when you start a podcast, you grow and you learn, you're preparing for it, you're interviewing people, but it just gives me an opportunity to like articulate my thoughts, feelings, and emotion on a platform that I can share with the world.
That's, fantastic stuff. To your second podcast, the Confessions of the Native Son here, we got to talk more, right? I mean, I don't know what it's like to be in your skin, right? And, it's just, it's a timely and important issue. And there's people screaming a lot. We need to do more talking, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, it's great. And the thing is, we're all human, right? We all have different perspectives on the world, and we're not all going to agree with each other, but there's power in having a platform to have the conversations, because one of the things that I'm blessed with here in Newark is human capital. And the human capital I'm not talking about is just mine. It's my network and the people you surround yourself around, and being able to bring that human capital to a podcast is very impactful in the community. I had a guy from my high school, right? We never hung out, never anything. I thought he was a little bit of a bully, to be honest. He messaged me on Facebook because he had heard my podcast, and he literally said, "Thank you. I have never heard Black men talk like that before." Because even now there's this we got classism going on, right?
Right.
Where we got people in the community, then you get a little success and you're out of the community now. And so even within our race, we got people that haven't interacted with this group. And so for them to sit down and just kind of hear our struggles and hear what we're talking about and stuff like that in a articulate kind of way, it's just really impactful. And so, podcasting is the future. I feel like this is the future of publishing. Writing a book and stuff is awesome, but when you can get another guest, you can hear those voices, you know what I mean? And you can share it to the universe. I think it's just really powerful.
You're hitting me in two places where I sort of live. The entrepreneurship side, to go back to that. You'll probably laugh at this, but how many times do you wake up at 3:00 in the morning and you're thinking about your business, right?
All the time.
I mean, look, trust me, you can give me a call.
Yeah.
I've owned my own business now for going on, God, how long has it been? 20 years, and I still got that, a little bit of that entrepreneurial itch, and you wake up at 3:00 in the morning wondering how you're going to solve all the issues you got to get past. And, it's just like you said, you got to pull off that facade, man. You can't be Superman. It's tough.
It's tough, and the thing is, it's so tough. It's like, when I first quit my job, right, and I started watching, it's weird, right? When you first start watching, I just watched my bank account and kept thinking, okay, I have about 3 months till I'm broke.
As an acronym, we have all these military acronyms. Mine was DROOM, DRROOM. You know what that means?
And you feel kind of frozen a little bit, right? Like you're watching. And I remember, I couldn't even sleep. I was just this anxiousness. Like you lay your head down and you're like, I got to get up, man. I got to get after it. I got to make something happen. But I
3-day weekends like I do. They got a holiday on Monday. All these people aren't working. We got stuff we got to get done.
Yeah, but I love it now. I think like anything else, the first year is always rough, right? Because you're just figuring it out. You're getting punched in the face, hand over fist. Then the second year, you're still getting punched in the face, right? You're alive. You can see that 6-month runway. That 3 months went to 6 months, but you can still see them. It's like the guy that's just over your shoulder, always watching you. Everywhere you go, you see them. And then, after 2-3 year mark, you're like, okay, you got, maybe 8 months or 9 months runway. but you just figure out, and then you become comfortable living with it. And I think it's this living with risk, which a lot of people aren't comfortable with. You know, this false sense of security that the world has given us, right? This idea, like, you know, before COVID-19, that, oh yeah, just because we made these returns this year, the world is going to stay the way it is, and we're just going to get the same returns year over year. And all of a sudden you get punched in the face, and it's just like, what's going on? But, you know, as an entrepreneur, it almost, to the outside world, it almost looks like a superpower. Because I meet
which is harder? Which is harder, being a Marine or being an entrepreneur?
You know, it's funny you asked me that question, because when the pandemic first hit, and, you know, I had my LinkedIn account. I've always been called myself a wartime CEO for like 3 years, right? And then all these civilians start calling themselves wartime CEOs. And I saw a LinkedIn post where somebody was like, civilians, stop calling yourselves wartime CEOs. I've been to war. This is not war, blah, blah, blah. And I had to jump in and comment on it. I was like, listen, man, I've been to war too. And this feels like war to me, because here in Newark, these business owners were fighting tooth and nail to keep their doors open, you know, before the lockdown, you know, keep people gainfully employed, right? Giving discounts, doing everything they could. And it felt sad. And it felt like we were fighting a losing battle. And it felt like war to me. So if you ask my honest opinion, I mean, they're probably about the same.
You got some kids that have come through Ironbound that, you know, you've turned them around. You got some success stories you might want to share with us?
Yeah, we got quite a few. You know, one of our guys, his name is Elvin Alicia. And, you know, he was 16 or 17 when I first met him. One day I'm in the boxing academy and I'm messing around with the speed bag, and Elvin walks in and he's like, hey coach, you got something to eat? Right. And I was like, no, man, but you can check my wallet, you know, and go to the vending machine up front. But because I was a Marine, you know, when you're in the military, every day you do platoon formation. You got that one Lance Corporal. Good morning, sir. Every day. Good morning, sir. Every day. Good morning, sir. And then one day he sees you and he doesn't say anything. And you're like, hey, come here, Marine. What's going on? You know, oh, sir, the wife left me or something, you know, and you kind of pull out. And then working at the residence hall, living with kids, you know, I noticed the same thing in pattern recognition. And so when he asked me if I had anything to eat, my spidey sense went off. And I said, hey, Elvin, when was the last time you ate something? He's like, it's quiet. I was like, did you eat something today? What about yesterday? Turns out they'd been evicted from their home, you know, him and his mom. And so he'd been living in the streets. And I told my coach, we got him some food and everything. And then we went to work. You know, me and my partner at the time, Gary Bloor, we had Elvin stay over at his house till we could figure something out. And then because of my relationship at St. Benedict's, right, I was able to get Elvin to move into the residence hall with me as a student. And he attended St. Benedict's. And that year we fought in the New Jersey Golden Gloves, made it all the way to the finals. He lost, but Elvin decided to stay an extra year at St. Benedict's because he was a senior to do a post-grad year. And so I left after that year to focus on Ironbound full time while Elvin stayed. And he eventually graduated again. You know, he did the post-grad thing and then got a full scholarship to New Jersey Central University, where he serves as an RA. And so we run an entrepreneurship program at Ironbound Boxing called Thrive. We teach kids entrepreneurship, yes, because we need to create economic opportunities if we want to lower crime and violence and poverty. And Elvin came through the program. We gave him $1,000 grant, and he launched his first business, Climate 2050. So super proud of Elvin. He's great, and he represents the Ironbound mentality.
So let me shift gears on you now. I want to do what I call the lightning round, okay? And just give you a couple of quick questions and see how you respond to them. If you had to choose a different branch of the military and not be a Marine, what would you do? What would your MOS be?
If I had to choose a different branch of the military, maybe Coast Guard. I don't want to say that. I would probably be Coast Guard. I just think it's interesting some of the places they stay, you know, but I really don't like being on boats. You know, I don't know. Honestly, I never really think of that. Maybe the Army.
Okay. All right. I already asked you if you'd ever been knocked out. What do you think was your biggest life lesson from going in the military?
Being in the hot seat. Biggest life lesson. When you're an infantry officer, you're in a hot seat always having to make the tough decisions, and you fail a lot. But, I think leadership is taught. When we're going through the academy, is leadership, are you born with leaders or is it taught to you? And, all we think you're born with it, whatever. But after just being in a hot seat over and over again, it's definitely taught. It's definitely taught. You just learn from experience.
I got one last question for you because you mentioned it before. You almost went to Texas A&M. You looked at, if you had to go to not one of the academies and you went to one of the senior military colleges, this is a loaded question, Mike, because you know what I'm thinking. But anyway.
Yeah, I'd probably go to Texas A&M.
Yeah, you'd have been an Aggie. I like those guys. I like those guys. The ones I met, man, I like them a lot.
Yeah, I got some really good friends that are Aggies, man. And it's just great. The community's great. It's a bucket list item for me because A&M was in my backyard. When I think of home,
we got to go see the halftime show and see the marching band. That's on my bucket list.
Yeah, that's right. It's great. It's amazing.
Have you seen it? You've been there? God damn it. You better take me then.
One of the platoon commanders in my unit 1-8, he was the head guy. He was whatever that position's at his senior year.
Drum major, maybe.
Drum major. But A&M was my backyard. I never went to school there. And, I feel like an Aggie at heart, but, I don't have anything, degree or anything. So.
You wanted to ask me some questions. Fire away. I'll be vulnerable. How about that?
Yeah. Tell me about your business. I'm interested in learning because I know you do consulting and you've kind of had this holding company. So you got multiple businesses under it. So I'm interested to learn about that.
Man, I'm an accidental investment banker is what I tell people because 20 years ago, I thought I was going to do something else, but ended up doing a lot of stuff, helping people buy and sell companies. It's kind of what I've done the most of for the last 20 years. But 2008, we had the Great Recession. And so I looked at that point in time, probably looked at about 15 years worth of deals. And that's when the light came on that, my very best clients were the veteran-led businesses, right? Because they've got the culture, they're team players, they got a heightened sense of ethics. They got personal accountability, all that kind of stuff. So that's when I started to focus on the veteran-led businesses. But over the last 3 or 4 years, I kind of realized there are all these veteran-led businesses out here and we can't find each other. It's, you don't wear it on your sleeve. And, there are organizations like Bunker Labs and so forth, but there literally are millions of veteran-led businesses out there. And so we've started a process of trying to bring them together with each other and the resources to help them prosper. And, we're starting to have events. I'd bring in a guest speaker. I'd have had you, come in and we'd have a cocktail reception, have 75, guys that were military veterans that were running businesses and get them together. And it was like the opposite of a middle school dance. They'd all go to the middle and start talking. And I knew things were going extremely well when they'd start insulting each other,
Yeah.
And so, but with COVID, we've had to pivot. So now I'm a podcaster, I'm doing this, and I got a little project up my sleeve that I think is going to be interesting. We're going to bring to the market here in the next couple of months. And even if it fails, it'll be, something that'll be very interesting. So, I'm having a lot of fun with this. I'd rather be with you guys and doing this than anything, at this stage of my career.
This is great though. But, so if I come across veterans that are looking for a search fund or looking to purchase a business, are you a good reference point for them?
I think I'm a great reference for that. And I just, I've gotten connected over the years now, pretty well. We probably share several hundred connections on LinkedIn, and here we're just getting to know each other. So I know a lot of people in the financial side of the community that are helping veteran-led businesses grow. And I think I'm pretty well plugged into that part of our ecosystem.
How many businesses did you purchase yourself?
I've never purchased a business myself. I've always represented, so I've owned my own business, right? And I've been involved in a number of mergers within my own company, but I'm usually the guy representing the business. So you get ready to sell Ironbound, I help you sell it. Or you want to go buy another boxing, business or network, then I'm helping those businesses do that, introducing them to sources of capital and helping them get the transaction negotiated and done. So that's
understood. Well, I'm excited to have you in my network because I definitely want to learn from you.
Hey, you know what? We got to get together. I'm absolutely serious. I need somebody at some point in time to take me to a Texas A&M football game so I can, see the halftime show. Actually, Allison Schneider, who works for me as a freedom maker, and she's married to a Marine who's at Quantico right now, and she's, they're big Texas Aggie fans. So one way or the other, I'm getting myself down there for that at some point in time. Hey, Mike, we are out of time. I get on these podcasts with interesting folks, and we hit the 30-minute mark before I know it. Really appreciate you stepping into the spotlight. And gosh, I want to stay in touch. Maybe I can, get you back and we can talk some more. And, how do people get in touch with you? How do they get in touch with Ironbound? How do they get in touch with the business where you're helping to produce podcasts?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple things. If you want to follow me, just add me on LinkedIn, Iron Mike Steadman. That's my tag on Instagram, Iron Mike Steadman. And then on Twitter, it's actually Native Son Speaks. If you're interested in podcast production, visit ironboundmedia.com. And, we got a lot of great stuff going on. We have a turnkey process to help you launch a great podcast, a podcast that super serves your niche. And then on the nonprofit side, I talked about our free boxing program, our entrepreneur incubator. That's ironboundboxing.org. We are a 501c3 organization, and your donations do allow us to continue to support free amateur boxing, entrepreneur education, and employment opportunities for Newark youth and young adults. You can go there. And then also just check out my podcast, The Transition. If you're a veteran and you're interested in starting a business or first-time business owner, check out The Transition. You won't be disappointed. And if you're interested in hearing me do deep dives on race, culture, and business, check out Confessions of a Native Son. And I know that sounds like a mouthful, but I like to view myself as a modern-day Renaissance man. I have a bunch of different itches that I scratch, but it all makes sense, and I just really help people. That's all.
We're going to put links to all of those things on the show notes for today's episode. Again, Iron Mike Steadman, thanks so much for stepping into the spotlight. You've been listening to the Spotlight on the Veteran Crowd Network. We air on Tuesdays and Fridays and bringing veterans who are making a difference in our community right into your living room. Thanks so much to you. A little Army shout out, Bravo Zulu to you, Mike, and that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight by VeteranCrowd. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and uploads, please visit our website at VeteranCrowdNetwork.com. We'll see you next time.